But right now, this is your turn to ask questions. We didn't want to interrupt people's presentations with questions right now, but I'm sure there is a lot of questions. I look out at this group and I know there's a lot of questions and concerns that you all have.
I've got 3 questions.
Okay.
Do you want me to ask them all now? I ask one and then try to come back and get in line. I don't want to dominate.
Okay, let's start out with the first one and see, time-wise.
The National Next Group, Cindy, is this the first time that a effort has been made to put together a 20 or 25-year plan for the city of Nashville?
No, it would be the 4th.
Okay.
So when Metro...
Understood, that's fine.
Okay.
So for the plan that's in place now, the gentrification that's taking place, the redevelopment that's taking place, was it a part of the 25-year plan that was put together before the one that you're working on now?
Not as big as what it is now, and not in as much detail as it would be addressed now. So it talks more generally about a variety of housing needs, and that would be one of them.
Okay, and in the interest of clarity and transparency, are we saying then that 25 years ago we talked about the gentrification that's taking place now? We knew,
no,
it's
it
not
was
a surprise. We knew that it was coming. We planned for
No,
the
I don't
gentrification.
think that it was really as much on the radar screen then, because that plan was actually developed during the recession of the early 1990s, and I think there was more like neighborhoods, especially in the inner city, were tending to have the opposite problems. They were looking to draw investment.
Right. And then my second question, for the tall homes that we're seeing, and I think many of the zoning allowances allow for you to go up, 3 stories high. Has anyone ever thought that for young folk that are young right now, climbing 3 flights of stairs is good, but when you get to be 60 and 65 years old, climbing that many flights of stairs could be challenging and even a hardship? Has that even been considered?
There is discussion about that, and it's funny that you bring that up because, I'm one of those people myself that's getting there. Yes, there is talk about that, not everybody is going to be able to climb flights of stairs for the rest of their lives, and that we are seeing inquiries in some areas where people want to build single-level homes, yeah.
Okay, and then my final question and our comment, the development that's going on, the redevelopment, the gentrification, there seems to be an absence of local folk participating in that, especially local minority folk participating in that. And this probably is not addressed to you, probably Councilman Scott Davis and somebody else, but what could have been done to allow minorities and local folk to be included in the development that is going on, particularly the gentrification?
In the actual development, I think
Yes.
I will.
Right, because capacity building is something that many minority contractors need to do. All of this redevelopment would have been a great opportunity for them to build that capacity, but I don't see, and by the way, I pastor New Livingstone Church. I've been there over 30 years, and I work for the Metropolitan Government in the Department of Codes Administration, so I know what I'm talking about. I see a lot going on, but there's a severe absence of local folk, particularly minority folk, participating in all of this development. It would have been good for the developers to walk hand in hand, side by side, with minorities and local folk to where their capacity could have been built. So I'll step away from the mic while you answer that. Somebody, please.
And thank you, Pastor Mitchell, for your questions. And I agree with you. There has been a lack of participation. On the Metro Council, I wish we had a magic wand. We've tried. I know my counterpart, Council Lady Megan Berry, has expressed this concern. And one thing that I have done to try and make this happen is, one group I'm involved with trying to connect them with resources, the Real Moms of East Nashville, a group of strong single mothers and single dads. I see Ashford Hughes with Building Nashville is here. And you have stepped up also, Pastor Mitchell, by allowing them to speak at with your congregation, and also have offered to have trainings. And right now, Building Nashville trains folks in concrete work, sewer work, and I've tried to connect the group with local contractors and developers. We've been somewhat successful. However, with the help of great neighbors in this room, we can do that. Right now, we have a minority contractor trying to build some of these homes. And one thing I've done is to provide transparency, and also other council members have, for minority contractors that some are in this room now who build homes in this district, to allow them to do the same things as, I'll just say a Justin Hicks with his 25 units or 28 units on Montgomery, and to also encourage them to hire the local people, and also to encourage them to hire folks with Ashford's group that have the skills, and also reach out to New Livingstone, Ray of Hope, and Cleveland Street Church to hire. There's talks that are happening, but in order to get our brothers and sisters in our communities and get the women working in our communities also, a lot of those folks are here today, and I encourage you to talk with them and connecting with them to get our folks, all of them who are underemployed or even unemployed, working. I mean, even if it's just cleaning a construction site, at least our neighbor can get some sort of, hourly wage, and that's the effort that we're working on, and that's the effort I'm going to continue trying to work towards. Thank you.
Okay, you want to step up?
My name is Jerome Farley, and I'm a resident of Nashville, Tennessee. I have been for 60 plus years, not intending to really say how old I am, but and then in East Nashville, about 55 years. After graduating from college, I moved out, traveled around the city, working around the U.S. working. Came back in 2006 to help my parents out, and I noticed this change in the community. So I started looking into the internet, tried to see what was going on, and I saw that Nashville was just going through a huge change. And so I wanted to get involved in what was going on. And I live over on Steinbach, and there's like maybe 10 of those skinny homes that you're talking up, popping up in like a 2-block area. I have worked with Scott Davis. I think he's doing an excellent job. You talk about boots on the ground. He meets with us on a regular basis and let us know what's going on. I had an opportunity to go to the NOAA meeting, and Mike Hodge, which has recently moved to the head of that organization. I was very impressed with what they were doing. My degree is in engineering, so I usually look at things from a logical standpoint, and starting with what I consider to be facts and the truth. One, Nashville is growing. That's the truth. The people are going to move in, and Nashville is limited geographically for space. We don't have a lot of land where someone can come in and just build this subdivision. We just don't have that type of land. So that means that they've got to come in and acquire existing property. And to make it economical, they're tearing it down and putting in these, where one home may be on these 3 lots. And they're putting in three homes to replace that one home. And the only way to go is straight up.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes.
I need you
Yes,
to
ma'am.
ask them a question
yeah,
in the interest of time.
Yes, okay.
Thank you.
I was getting to that. Okay. Well, let me jump on to the question. The question is, the reality of the thing is that, and they've all kind of hit on it, that the government, where we're going to need to make change is with our government, because the developers are able to do this because they have access to the government. They have the attorneys to analyze the rules and regulations. We have several great committees here. My question is, in order to represent the people and us represent you guys, is there any effort for all of you to work together? Because there's a lot of power and influence at this table right now. And for us to divide it up, it's going to, it's not as powerful as all of you working together. I wonder if there's any effort or any plan or any discussion around you guys forming one coalition or even more. That's the question.
Are you talking about the people at the table, right?
The people at the table. Only because that's the only ones I'm
Okay.
familiar with.
All right. Anybody want to answer this?
Well, I mean, one answer is part of the Nashville Next process. There are a whole group of folks on the housing, on the housing committee that are working together. And these are folks that have been in the housing world in Nashville, in the nonprofit and government sector for a long period of time. So there's a real brain trust there. It's a matter of deciding, if you want people to come out and work with you as a neighborhood. I'm sure that some of those folks that work for the organizations I named before or Metro Planning would be able to help. But I think that we already have folks together. I think the next step is actually the political will to do something about it, because we've been talking about the solutions for quite a while amongst those of us in the housing kind of world, and it's just not that complex. It's about actually getting out, working with communities, and also working with government, because we know from history that the market's good at some things, or the private sector, but it's not usually considered their job to develop affordable housing without encouragement by the government and by communities like yours.
I was at a neighborhood meeting a few months ago, and they were talking about building new housing on Montgomery and Douglas over here, which I believe they've broke ground and they're starting to do. And the developer said that the housing is going to go in the low 320s and up. And then he excitedly announced that there was going to be 2 affordable housing units, and they were going to go 155,000 and up. And the reality is, here in this neighborhood and in Nashville, is there are hundreds of thousands of people who earn less than 20, and many people earn less than $15,000 a year, and 150,000 is not affordable. In fact, it's way over budget of what a lot of people can actually afford. There is no effort on the part of the Tennessee government at any level to raise wages here. In fact, wages are being more and more depressed as wealthy people are moving in. And I kind of cringe every time I hear this term affordable housing, because it's a lot often used to push poor people out, because it's a matter of opinion what is meant by affordable. Nobody puts a dollar figure on it. And what my question is this: if anybody in this room, and I'm probably somebody here does, if you worked at Walmart, there's a big Walmart right over here, what can you afford for a house, and what is this panel or what is the city going to do to truly provide affordable housing? There's a difference between calling something affordable housing and something being truly affordable housing. So that's my question.
Okay. Jim?
I don't want to be a microphone hog, but I will say absolutely. And I said this in the Nashville Next presentation. Typically, when we use the term affordable housing, it means a wide range of things. Up to 120% of what we talked about in that meeting is the area median income, which is high. Like neighborhoods I work in, like Chestnut Hill, we did an actual analysis of what the median income is there, and it was about $15,000. That meant 50% of the population makes less than $15,000 a year. So you're absolutely right. When we say affordable, we have to be looking at the actual numbers for that neighborhood, because it's not affordable to put something in there like you talked about for most of those residents. And it's a difficult situation, because it means that we have to educate a broader audience of people about, when we use the term affordable housing, are we talking about for that neighborhood and those people, or are we talking about for the city? And if we're talking about for the city, it usually doesn't mean a whole lot for a specific neighborhood. It just doesn't. So I would say start changing the terms of the debate and like you just did, make sure that we're talking about specific neighborhoods and what the area median income is for those neighborhoods. So when we have housing products put out by MDHA or by our local nonprofits, we can have that conversation, because I think they're aware of this, but it's a matter of the general public also starting to push on that button like you just did.
I distinctly remember that meeting, and that's why at one time, on the other side of Montgomery, to kind of balance off the offset of those $300,000 and up units, on the other side of Montgomery that butts up against the railroad tracks, the neighbors down there, didn't want a single-family house going up on a couple of lots at $325. And then we looked at, well, why don't we do something connected, or doing 2 or 4 or 5 at the 125, the 150 range to kind of balance out the 28 $350,000 units going in on the other side of Montgomery. Some neighbors liked it, some neighbors didn't, and it's all about balance. And I know some people like the nice big units and some want something more affordable. I think we have enough room to get not 100% of what everybody wants, but maybe 90%. And
in listening to all the dialogue and as everything has developed in the neighborhood, there doesn't seem to be much discussion about, okay, we've got gentrification and gentrification, but just asking your opinion in terms of how do we get communities to change that narrative to gentrification to versus economic empowerment or economic development, and making it more equitable, because right now, as long as we're having the discussion about gentrification, I'm just looking, and my question is two-parted. How do we change that narrative in the community and empower the community to be willing participants in what's happening as far as gentrification, and take the good parts of gentrification from what's happening and empower themselves economically? That's part one. Part two, do you think we'd be better off, or the community would be better served by focusing on the homestead possibilities, as well as using some of the resources that we have here in the neighborhood? We have a financial empowerment center, and we have a population here that's financially illiterate in terms of what's actually going on, and there's no way for them to be empowered as long as these resources they're not plugged into. So to clarify the question, what can we do to change the narrative towards empowerment where these communities are participating in what's happening? And also, what suggestions could you make as far as the Homestead Act and maybe some resources being made available to some of the residents that are here to improve their properties so that they can stay longer? Thank you.
Who wants to take that?
Well, the main thing I thought of when you were talking about economic empowerment is two main things. One is, I think there's some elderly folks that are getting rooked in a lot of these neighborhoods. I think there are some developers that are coming in and saying, oh, I'd love to buy your house. How about if I give you $50,000 for this house? And the elderly folks are saying, man, I only paid $14,000 for it 50 years ago. And so I think there are people getting cheated. So I think we need to find a way to do what you said about financial literacy, helping people know what their property's worth. That's number one. And Jim mentioned something about a community benefits agreement a little while ago. There ought to be some way that we can link that with some of the concerns about housing, because I think that would get at what you're talking about. Okay.
We have some people that suggest legislation that handles that.
One of the things that we have in our neighborhood over here is the Empowerment Center that Ben mentioned down on Foster Avenue. But unfortunately, I've not seen very much activity from it coming into this community at all. It's one of the satellite offices. There's another one over on the south side. There's been people that applied to work there that live in this neighborhood, that know this community, but there seems to be a disconnect somewhere along the line with getting the people there to come out to the people here. So I would ask all of you who know residents to use the center. It's your tax dollars paying for it, and have some accountability to this community for the Empowerment Center and the work that they do, because we do need a financial education on what your property is worth, and the area that you're living in, the actual value of the things that are here in East Nashville now, because a lot of people bought homes, or their families bought homes in 1960 when we were displaced with the urban renewal, and maybe paid $6,000 for the house. That same house now is worth over $100,000. So don't be shortchanged, and that center is there for our use. So I encourage everybody to please go out and use it. The Empowerment Center on Foster Avenue. It's, if you go down Lishy, make a right turn on Foster, it's sitting in the area where the old Levy development used to be.